Tottenham Hotspur have appointed Thomas Frank as their new head coach.
And the consistency and the players know the patterns. But of course I'm aware that we need to be flexible sometimes.
You look what Thomas Frank has done over the course of 7 highly successful years, you can understand why Tottenham would be interested.
Welcome into the Tottenham Depot. I am your host, Andrew. You can follow me at Astetka. You can follow us at Tottenham Depot. This is episode 247, and it's going to be a busy one, even though it's only a 2-ball here today. We've got our man TC at TC_show is here. What's up, Todd? What's going on, man?
Any day, brother. Any day that you can announce your new number 7 in front of a sold-out crowd is a good fucking day. I'm sorry that he had to witness the subsequent shit show that followed.
Yeah, it was not pretty. We are certainly going to get into it. I'm glad you brought up number 7, though, because did you happen to see our former number 7 this week at the LA Dodgers game, tossing out a first pitch? My goodness.
An absolute laser. No, it was a perfect strike. He did not float it in there. He definitely didn't burn it in there. He did everything that he needed to. It was the quintessential Sun Heung-min strike.
Yeah,
if you have not, right down.
If you have not seen it, go to LAFC's social media page. It's a thing of beauty for someone who obviously did not grow up playing baseball. All I can say is that man is an athlete. Like, dude, he worked on it, he practiced it, and he nailed his ceremonial first pitch. It was kind of great.
As an LAFC fan and clearly a Spurs fan, I have been basking in the glory of this transfer more than anything. I mean, he's literally sold more kits than anyone else in the world. So since he's moving to LAFC, which is wild. My favorite part about that Sun first pitch video, though, is afterwards I got to hear the mic'd up version. And Blake Snell, I believe, is the kid who's catching it. And he literally says, he goes, man, I didn't even move my glove. And Sun, they're all smiling, taking pictures. And after it dies down a little bit, Sun looks at him and goes, in a very genuine moment, he goes, was it good? And he goes, you did great. And Sonny smacked him with the glove and he goes, you made me feel comfortable. And they just had this genuine human interaction for him and was like, how do you not love this man?
It was awesome. I love also how you refer to Blake Snell as a kid. He's 32. He's right around the same age as Sonny, which is great. I hear you though, man. It was awesome.
Whenever I talk about Blake Snell, I always want to call him Ian Snell, which for any MLB old school folks knows who that is. But I was happy to get the right name out, but thanks for that.
No question about it. And like I said, we will talk about the new number 7 as well, but we kind of, I've been delaying by talking about Sonny, but we do kind of have to talk about what we just witnessed earlier today, actually, because we are once again recording this on Saturday, just a few hours after Spurs dropped one of the stinkiest 90-minute performances that I can recall. And we're going to approach this from a few different ways, you and I, because I'm not even, I found it hard to even get too worked up about this match. It was not fun to watch, and it was a slog, but I was just like, yeah, this looked like the match before an international break for Spurs, and it looks like it has for the last couple of years when that happens, right?
You bring that up, and I think that the stat was out, and I'm going to take it, but the stat was out that Spurs haven't won a match going into an international break since October of 2023. Ouch.
Yeah. Ouch indeed.
Now, I am going to postulate with no verifiable basis at all whatsoever that this goes back to, and I said this in the lead up to our pod today. It looked like, half those guys were on the plane already. And, I think that this, I'm going to say that this may have been, and our chit record before international windows may be, something that Cudi Romero alluded to in that, the players are responsible for their own travel and accommodations and whatnot when handling international break that the club doesn't do for them, which is not necessarily something that is commonplace throughout top flight professional football. But I digress. I went through the gambit of emotions on this one. I really, really did. I have a hearty disdain for Simon Hooper and always have, and thought that he did everything that he could to drag his muddy feet all over the cleanliness of that match. I from every angle, looking at the refereeing decisions, save the part where they should have had a penalty, which I'll fully admit. I thought it was fucking abysmal from Simon Hooper today. I thought he was truly, truly terrible.
I agree with you 100%, and that's the thing. It wasn't. I'm not. Look, longtime listeners of the Depot will know I'm not one of those that complains about officiating all that much.
Sure.
Like calls go both ways, and I really just think that this match was poorly officiated in every which way. I didn't think all the calls were going for or against us. I thought it was sloppy, and it was allowed. Here's the biggest problem I had. The game was allowed to get physical with no control. There were 2 early yellow cards dished out, but then nothing. And there were many tackles being thrown in that should have been fouls that weren't getting called fouls. And then the fouls that were getting called, many of them should have been bookings, and they weren't. And it was just, he did not take control of the match in a way that an official is supposed to. And once you start to let a Premier League game get out of hand, it's hard to get it back under control. And that's what happened.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And I think that when you have a game where, the match starts out with an early goal, things change. The complexion of the match changes after that. And I felt like when you have an official like Simon Hooper, who loves to slow the game down, who loves to just kill play, I don't really understand it. It's just the way that he officiates. It makes it a slog. And that's what it felt like. It was a slog today. However, as I mentioned, I ran through the gambit of emotions on this one. The second thing that I want to bring up is, the fact that we haven't really looked like we've had a lot of teeth going forward. We look like, to this point in time in the season, the 3 competitive matches prior to this, including the Super Cup, we look like we were tactically set up in a way that was going to maximize our opportunities. I felt today, for the first time under Thomas Frank, we played against a team that was a Premier League quality team that was going to sit in a low block, and we knew they were going to sit in a low block, and we did not have the quality to break it down. They were doubling the ball on the wings every single time, which it significantly limits the effectiveness of Mohamed Kudus. It limits the effectiveness of Pedro Porro-Cross, both of whom had their worst games in Lily Light for them this season. When I looked at how Bournemouth set up, especially after they scored that early goal, we didn't really have an answer for what they were doing. And so my second point here is, we still don't have any teeth. It's just a matter of now playing against a level of competition that's going to highlight those weaknesses for us. And so, there were multiple times, Andrew, where we had the ball with space in the middle of the D and nobody had the stones to take on a shot. There were a couple of chances in the second half where Tell, had a good opportunity and flashed one wide. It was a first time touch, but probably the one that hurt the most was Odebear doing his best Musa Sissoko impression and, getting a half volley and throwing it into, kicking it into row Z. We had 1 fucking shot on target today and 0 corners.
Yep.
I think
that is exactly how it went. Yes.
And the 0 corners piece, and realistically, the Simon Hooper officiating, so you don't have a lot of final third set pieces for us today. There were a few, but not a ton. Really negates the type of offensive opportunities we've been able to create to this point in the year.
I hear what you're saying about the setup. I don't think, look, I came into this match thinking, look, Bournemouth had a really, really positive season last year. They remind me a little bit of like Wolves from about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, fair enough.
Where they're just that mid-table plucky group that is going to cause problems. I think they may even have a little bit more quality than some of those Wolves teams did, but I knew this was going to be a tough game. I certainly didn't think you were going to be able to waltz in here, even off the backs of 2 very good Premier League wins to start the season and get a third here. That said, the part that I think disappointed me is what we started talking about at the front. It looked lethargic. And I think that started and ended with, and I don't really want to just single him out, but Pedro Porro. This was maybe the worst match I've seen Pedro Porro play in a Spurs shirt. He was subbed off in the 71st minute in favor of Destiny Adogi, who made his first appearance of the season and came on and looked good, which I liked. Porro was turning the ball over a lot. He was getting absolutely cooked by Semenyo every which way. Needed a lot more help than he was getting there from frankly from João Palhinha, who also I think kind of laid a stinker in this one and did not look very good.
The way that someone put it in one of our group chats, Andrew, was it, and this is more for the the elder statesman American fans at this point, but it looked like Johnny Moxon took him to the strip club last night. And you're welcome for that Varsity Blues reference. But yeah, the 26-year-old MTV Films product. Yeah, no, they looked like they'd been out partying all night. Like it didn't. And the other thing that I want to say, and we're going to come on to this. When I say that we don't have any teeth, I mean, unless the game sets up where we can long balls over the top, Brendan Johnson's not the guy on the left.
No.
If he's getting double teamed in the middle by two competent center backs, Richarlison is not the guy in the middle. Like, it wasn't there today, bud.
No, and when you can't get the proper hold up play, when you can't get and look, we didn't even mention this either, but Solanke was out for this match, picked up a small knock. It's not expected to be a long-term thing, but that was a surprise as well. So a change that couldn't be made 1-for-1 there in the striker department. But yeah, it's just I don't even really blame much of the front three for this match, because I think that Spurs were just not able to get on the front foot at all. I know they had more possession, and you say Bournemouth had that low block going, but part of it was the lack of creativity, which we hopefully will be injected with a little bit of something from that new number 7 that we're going to talk about. But overall, I just didn't see anything. I mean, I thought Bentancur had an okay game, but the rest of that midfield was
the midfield three. But the
right.
midfield was poor. Sarr was pretty non-existent today. I don't know if Thomas, what it looked like to me, and this is all jokes aside. If you played sports at any level, you know that certain weeks they've got you training, and you're doing certain things in training where, especially early in the season, where you're still like foundation building, and you go into some of those early games and you're struggling, man. You're hurt a little bit. The muscles are sore from the midweek practice, or from the long practice that we had on Thursday, or whatever it happened to be. It looked like we were sore. It looked like we had a midweek game, and we didn't.
And that's kind of, like I said, that's the real disappointing part of this, because you had that opportunity to go into an international break really on a high, potentially even at the top of the table. Who knows what's going to happen with the Gunners this weekend going up? They have to play Liverpool, so like you had a real chance to put your mark on the early part of the season here, and you just kind of peed down your leg at home on what should have been a really cool day. That's the disappointing part of it for me. But I'm also not, I'm not sounding alarm bells. I'm not.
No,
I'm not going to jump to those kinds of conclusions either.
Right. And this is the Zen portion of the gambit of emotions that I felt, right? Is that you come to the end of it and you take a few steps back and you go, wow, that was disappointing. And as Thomas Frank put it, no, we did not reach our levels of football today. Which I think we can all agree. Like
I don't think we reached any level of football today, much less our levels of football today. It was that bad.
5 total shots, no shots in the first half, Andrew.
No shots in the first half. One shot on target, like you mentioned. 0 corners to Bournemouth's 8 corners. They had 62% of the ball and came away with 0.17 xG in this match, and 0.1 of that 0.17 was the Bergvall shot. Like
that's the keeper.
That's really, really dreadful. That's no creativity. That's no offensive output for a team that, again, had that offensive output in the last couple of matches.
The one narrative that I want to stay away from is, well, this will show Daniel Levy that he has to spend in the transfer window and no.
Yes,
we're not going to play that game. We're not going to play that game. You will hear that in the next 24 hours. Shut the fuck up. What I will say on that is, we are 3 Premier League matches into this season. To this point in time, we have had nothing to complain about, save the collapse against PSG in the Super Cup. But in terms of the game against Burnley, in terms of, especially on a short turnaround, the game against Man City. Thomas Frank, the players, everybody knocked it out the park. The one bright spot that we haven't had in the first two games, to be fair, that I felt like we had today was Vicario.
I'm glad you went there because yes,
and so
he was incredible. What I'll say about Vicario is it's amazing that we lost this match 1-0 because it easily could have been a 3-0, 4-0 match. Like he did keep them in it. And that's the kicker too, because you mentioned the PSG match. What's the one thing about the PSG match that we pointed at? Oh, those subs once those subs were made, the level dropped. And then that was learned in the following two matches. Like you've got to keep it up. Today, what I'll give Thomas Frank credit for is he didn't wait too long. 55th, 54th minute, he made a couple subs, and that is when the game started. Like they started to turn the noise down a little bit. And that's the part that kind of upsets me a little bit too, is because I think the subs were correct today, and you could see it start. There just wasn't enough time to get that goal back, and it's like, oh, it was there. They just didn't kick on. As dreadful as a performance it was, they just didn't get it done.
I think four of those, all five of those shots came in the second half, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's so bad.
So
like when you look at that, and that's what everybody says, is that like I think for the first time that we've seen, tactically, Thomas Frank got it wrong. Tactically, having a midfield of Paulinho, Sarr, and Bentancur is not going to get the job done against the low block. Which, to be fair, Andrew, and for those of you playing at home, we fucking knew that wasn't going to work last year. So when you replaced with whoever in the midfield for Paulinho, like having Sarr and Bentancur playing in those advanced eights doesn't work for us if we're playing a game against a team who plays a low block or who is going to sit in and get really narrow, because those guys are not creative enough to break through those lines. So we don't mean that disrespectfully to them, but it's simply to say that, horses for courses, and that's what Thomas Frank does exceptionally well. Without the creative force in the middle, we did not have the horse for this course today.
And the pushback to what you're saying there, the only pushback that there can be is, well, that's why Daniel Levy needs to go out in the window. Well, we think he just did that, and that's the positive. We hope he just did that, and that's a guy that can come in and kick on and be that creative force in this midfield that's needed. But I guess when you're talking about this defeat to Bournemouth, I don't know what other option there would be. I know people are going to say just start Lucas Bergvall in this match instead of
Bentancur or Sarr,
and then stick Paulinho, deep. And that might have worked, but also I just don't know that I have the full faith in Lucas Bergvall to come in and be a creative attacking midfielder, because I don't even think that's his long-term role. He definitely can do it and show a spark off the bench like he did in this match, but I don't know that that's a real solution.
And this won't show up in the XG, this will only show up if you watch it. One of the biggest opportunities gone to waste in this match was Lucas Bergvall, with no red and black shirts around him, running for 20 meters right around the D and not taking a shot and looking for a pass and eventually turning it over. And it's like, if you have Xavi Simons in that role, or James Maddison or Dejan Kulusevski, and you give them that much space, they're having a pop. They're at least having a pop. And I think, again, that boils down to confidence and like skill set and the way that you do things. And that just shows at this point in his career, that shot is not in Lucas Bergvall's game. And so we just need to be okay with that and keep it moving. And at least at this level.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Go ahead. Your third thing.
The third thing that I want to say is this was a stinker. And if you, in any sport, and you know this as a sports pragmatist, in any sport, if you lay out a season across a blank piece of paper, there will be a couple of just plain out fucking stinkers. There's just going to be a couple of stinkers, right? And even if you win those matches, there's going to be a couple of games where you're like, man, that was just a rough go. So we lost a match in the Premier League, 1-0, before an international break. After winning the two previous matches, we keep it moving.
The last thing I'll say, I love, and I still love watching Mohamed Kudus play on this team, because my goodness, he does a few things every match where you're just like, how did he get by that guy? Mm-hmm. And I love that he's our brand new, very dribbly boy, but sometimes he needs to be a very good passy boy too, because there were many opportunities today where he's blowing by a guy and there's a runner and he just doesn't see him. He's basically trying to dribble the ball into the box rather than hitting the wide open man on a pass.
Well,
and that's another one of those creative forces things that we need to see a little bit more out of.
So that is kind of another thing that I think is important to mention. You know, the drawback on Muhammad Kudus has always been that he's wasteful in possession at times. And he's going to try stuff, and when stuff doesn't come off, you know, you walk away with the feeling of, oh, that was a very wasteful performance. However, you have to have that kind of creative spark in order to unlock the rest of the offense. And I'm so thankful, even though, you know, in the stat line or whatever, he didn't look great today. Probably the worst game that he's played for us. I'm still so thankful for the type of player that he is, because I think that in a situation where you have Dom Solanke healthy, where the hold-up play in the middle of the box is actually significantly better, because against a low block, Johnson's touch and Richarlison's touch let us down over and over and over and over again. And like, to be fair, like, I don't knock those guys. Like, what the hell? That's been the knock on those guys the entire time that they've been here, right? This is who they are as players.
Well, and guys are could also just going to have bad games sometimes.
Well, sure, but I mean, I don't even. I need to think more objectively than that and say, like, well, no, the skill sets that we want from them in a game state like this don't exist. It's like me looking at my 8-year-old going, why can't you do calculus? What the fuck is wrong with you? Do this calculus. And he's like, I'm 8. What's calculus? Like, that's Brennan, like, trying to withhold up play, right? Like, is there a back post around here? No, shit, I don't know what I'm doing. Pass back to you. And that's essentially who Brennan is in our offense if he's not running past somebody. And it's tough to see, but that's the facts. Brennan, and this is kind of one of the reasons why I'm begging, and it's not going to be him, and I know that. For those listening at home, I know in my bones that this isn't going to happen, but I am a woeful optimist. And because of that, I'm still holding out a glimmer of hope that Savinho comes to this team, because he and Xavi are best buddies. They love each other. They play together at PSV. They make silly hearts together, big anime dorks. It's perfect. He's a perfect fit for what we do. But even if it's Lookman, even if it's somebody else, we need a capable left winger on this team that can, in the Premier League, go by somebody, provide a decent cross, and then whip something in with their right foot. If we get that, I think it totally changes the perception of what this offense is, because now Muhammad Kudus isn't stuck being the one-trick pony on the right-hand side while Brennan's looking for that cross at the back post. Now, when you switch the play, you're equally as dangerous attacking that back post from both directions. And right now we're not, unless they give Pedro Porro enough space to overlap with Kudus on that right-hand side. But as you already mentioned, Pedro Porro was kind of nowhere to be found today. And so
he was busy tracking back to try and find Semenyo with the ball.
I mean, that's fair enough, but there was a point. There was a point in time, and that's why I said it may be something muscular with him, or like he might be tired or sore, because there was a point in time where Cudi Romero was in his ass about not making the overlapping run. And so what that says to me is there's some sort of physical ailment that we don't know about right now. But I don't know, man. I think that with the introduction of a true number 10 and with the introduction of a Premier League ready left winger, it changes the entire complexion of our offense. And we are a much more capable side, but we still have no teeth up front. So,
well, we're gonna get into all of that now. Let's just wash our hands of this one. Like, throw it out. It's
done.
It's done. We can't do anything about it. I'm frankly, I'm gonna take a little solace that it was a 1-0 and not a 3 or 4-0, just for the goal differential. Like, who knows if that may come back in the end and be a better result than we think, because they just played so woefully that you can't even ask for anything. You mentioned it. Xavi Simons comes over from RB Leipzig, a deal around £52 million for the 22-year-old. He does take over the number 7 shirt. Let's just start there. How do you feel about that? Are you okay with this?
I love it. I absolutely love it. Because here's the thing. Is that
I know there's going to be some people who are like, really, but it's a number. It doesn't. Look, I'm sure they are out there.
I got 3 reasons why I'm totally fine with it. The first reason is, because of the type of player that he is, every Premier League side, especially every Big Six side, needs, I don't want to call him a talisman because I feel like that term is overused, but a bell cow, a face of the franchise.
A dude.
A dude. Like, you know, that guy, when the ball's at his feet, can do things that other dudes on the pitch can't do. And we lost that with Harry and now Son gone. Just plain and simple. We had other dudes along the way, your Ericssons and your Delis and, these guys, these dudes that could, find a goal necessary. But for the last decade, it's been Harry and Sonny. And so I'm excited to have a guy with number 7 on the back have the ability, and we'll come on to all the things, but have the ability to change the game. A game changer is who needs to wear that number 7 for a Big Six side in the Premier League, and he is that. Second reason why I'm amped about it is because of the type of person that he is. It's such a critical piece to me that when you have a club legend like Sonny leave, who was a legend not only for the things that he did on the pitch, but specifically for the things that he did off the pitch and the person he was off the pitch, that the person to take his number next needs to have similar characteristics, not necessarily the affability, but just the guy who gets it, right? He's a big picture guy. Xavi Simmons, I'm just going to call him Xavi because I don't know. Like, I heard you try to church it up, but I don't know if it's Simmons or Simons.
I'll tell you where I got it from. I listened to the great journalist Alistair Gold, and he said the club said it is pronounced, and I listened to it multiple times because I used to have to do this for a job. I used to have to spell stuff out phonetically and everything.
Yeah,
he pronounced it Xavi Simons. Almost a little bit like French-like, even though he's Dutch, which we get the crossover there. Like there's a little bit of crossover, but
they're neighbors.
Xavi Simons, like that's so I get it. Xavi is what I'm going with.
Xavi is what I'm going with. He's named after Xavi Hernandez anyway, so that's totally fine. Okay, so the type of person that Xavi is such a critical piece to being the talisman for such a huge football club. And what I mean by that is he was like the first internet sensation academy kid. Right? Like, he's the first social media footballer that you started watching when he was 7 years old because he had the cool hair and he was wearing the Barcelona kit and he did all the tricks. Okay. That kid has gone through such an incredible journey from the Academy of Barcelona, which I'm not going to butcher the name of, but is incredible, to his time where he goes to PSG and then they develop him there, and then he goes to PSV and shines out, becomes led the Eredivisie in goals. They win the Dutch Cup. He hangs out with Savinho and Serginho Dest, and they do incredible things. I don't know if Dest was there. I just made that part up. And then he goes to RB Leipzig. And he learns an entirely different brand of football, but he does incredible things there, helps them win, beat Harry Kane in the German Super Cup. And now he's ready to make the move. Literally the same age, one day later than Sonny moved from Hamburg.
10 years ago.
10 years ago. And so 7 to 7, one day later, it is a perfect symmetrical transition. And the third reason,
from Bundesliga to Premier League too.
And the third reason is because I got to wear number 7 on his back in that orange kit when he turned Declan Rice and hit a banger past Jordan fucking Pickford for England. So the 7 looks good on the guy. That's where I'm at.
I'm excited too. I think the part about this deal that actually, and this is going to really reveal the nerd in me, but just from an investment standpoint, this is a 5-year deal with an option for 2 more for a 22-year for a 22-year-old. Like, that's some business there. And I guess with all the disappointment from the last few weeks with trying to get an attacking midfielder in, all of a sudden Spurs just kind of out of nowhere, frankly, like this deal kind of came about on Thursday and was announced on Friday. I know it was obviously in the works for longer than that, but like Spurs just made a deal happen. And that's exciting. I guess my question would be, is this, I know you're holding out hope for Savinho. There are links to a number of other types of players of that ilk, maybe not of that ilk, but of the attacking ilk. In terms of attacking players, what else do we think is going to come across the line over the next few days? Because obviously we're talking only about the next few days, and that's all there is.
I want to come on to that in just 1 second, and I think that it's critical that we go back and talk a little bit more about Xabi before I answer that question for you. So one of the reasons why Xabi sat in this window a little bit is because he's a traditional number 10, and there's not a lot of teams that play a traditional number 10. So fit and scheme were not particularly great for him at places like Chelsea. Like the personal terms were done. They're like, yeah, we'll pay you whatever. But like, it wasn't from a project standpoint, it wasn't the best fit for him. Here, not only does he get to play that traditional 10 role, but he also has the ability to kind of pop out to the left and play that left attacking role, similar to the way that when we were playing like Dele as a shadow striker on Kane, we'd have Eriksen technically start on the left, and he would kind of occupy that half space in between the left wing and the middle.
It's almost a little bit of like what we've seen Kulusevski do on the right side.
Exactly that. And so he has the ability to do that. So when you're asking, and I think it's incredible. So first off, more through balls than anybody else. Like I listened to, shout to the Lab. Flab is my podcast here. I love that guy. Shout to the Lab. They did an incredible piece where they did the breakdown. It was Flab and Ben Bowman and the guy from Lily Light Labs, Kish. And they did a breakdown of the stats between Eze, Morgan Gibbs-White, Nico Paz, and Xabi. And they did a really cool comparison. But where Xabi really stood out is the through balls are more than double anybody else on that list. And the shot conversion rate, like when he actually gets a shot, he converts at 43%.
Which is an enormous number.
It's incredible. It's 20% higher than anybody else on that list. So if I'm looking at that going, wait a second, from deep you can play through balls, and when you get your opportunity, you bury it half the time, sign me up. So with that in mind, to answer your question, as I look at the rest of this window, I need somebody who can complement that. Play my number 7, but also be able to rotate in the middle and occupy that half space to do some incredible things in there. There are 2 particular names that come to mind for me. The first one is obviously Savinho. I know there's been talks about Lookman, and if that comes along, that would be fine. But my choice, if it's not Savinho, is Lee Kang. Kang Lee. I'm going to mess it up. I'm sorry. The South Korean kid from PSG that scored a banger in us against the Super Cup. So
I know there's links out there. I basically I do think that there are going to have to be some more outs at this point if they want to bring another attacking player in. And that's, there are certainly names out there, Manar Solomon, Brian Heel, like names that certainly need to go and should go in the next few days. I worry that this may be all. I think there are other areas of the club at this point too that need attention in the next few days, and I want to come on to that in a second. But from an attacking standpoint, I would like to get one more player in. I'm just not 100% sure it's going to happen because Spurs have kind of had their hand in the cookie jar for a while now. And
I'm not worried about that.
You're not.
No,
you're not worried about.
Daniel,
you're not worried about the time frame here.
I'm giving you a 20-year track record of Daniel Levy pulling shit out of a hat on the last day of transfer window.
It's true. And sometimes
Sometimes
it's Lucas Moura, and sometimes it's Tanguy Ndombele. Like, that's the problem.
Listen, before Tanguy Ndombele got a taste for the Jaffa cakes, that guy was turning people left, right, and sideways. But what I will tell you is that the best predictor of future results is past results. And Daniel Levy, and especially with this team around him, with Paratici, which wasn't Kulusevski and fucking Bentancur deadline day deals.
They were January deals, but yeah.
Well, I mean, January deadline day is what I'm talking about.
Right.
The end of January.
That's also something that I have on my list to have mentioned. Yes, there are reports out there that Fabio Paratici will return to Spurs in an official capacity by October as the club's recruitment director, which has been long rumored for like 9 months.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's been working behind the scenes as a consultant. That's well documented.
Right.
And so it's just he's going to be taking over the directive piece as opposed to what
I think the thing that people are frustrated by, maybe is the word, and have seen in this window is that there doesn't seem to be a plan.
I disagree entirely.
That's fine. I'm talking, and I don't know that I agree with this. I'm saying that this is a lot of the perception that I see from fans is that Johan Lange, we don't really know what he's doing here. The organization of bringing in a new manager and kind of trying to build a recruiting setup on the fly a little bit for him, and also the Fabio Paratici part of it. Like, it feels like there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and the meals that are being served are decent so far, but nobody's really sure how much longer the chef is going to be able to keep cooking with the ingredients, if you know what I mean.
I understand what you're getting, where you're going with this. I think that the things that Johan Lange does well and the things that Paratici does well are two entirely different things. So number one, I think that youth scouting, I think Johan Lange is exceptional.
When he's not falling asleep during a scouting match, right?
I hate that they posted that on that guy. Keep this in mind. That's your 7th match of the week.
Dude,
and you're at third tier English football trying to pay attention to one kid who's not even on the pitch yet.
I mentioned that just because I saw it and I immediately clicked away because I was like, I don't need this in my life right now. I don't need to be paying attention. I mentioned it jokingly and with a smile if you're not watching us on YouTube, like that. I'm kidding about that, but you get what I'm saying about
I do.
Like, what's going on with this recruitment setup now, and that's been the struggle.
Paratici, I'm going to go ahead and say this because I think it's the truth. I think that guy's been pulling way more strings from behind the scenes than anybody wants to admit. I think you have to have a recruitment chair, so I think Johan Lange being in there is critical. I think, as I mentioned, he does an exceptional job of youth scouting, and so like having him do that piece is massive. Paratici is a deal maker, though, and that's the big thing for me. Plus, he has contacts that Lange doesn't have, right? Lange more in Western, in Northern Europe, Paratici more in Southern and Eastern Europe. And so, like, when you look at those things, you go, okay, well, I can see how in tandem these guys can work successfully together. Don't stress about the end of this window. We will get another attacking figure. I'm just worried that it's a George Kevin Nkudu instead of a Savinho. And if that happens, like, see, I got you the thing, it's a little different. Now, the other piece that we have to bring in is center back help.
So that's where we're going. And but by the way, I want to reassure you, I'm okay with this window, whatever happens. Like, I'm not freaking out.
Now that we have Xabi. Like,
right. We needed another midfielder, a creative midfielder. We've accomplished that. But I do want to talk about center backs because we did see this week, and we've been talking about it 4 weeks, that Luka Vuskovic did go on loan, a dry loan for 1 season to Hamburg. Cool. Yeah. Great for him. Go to a newly promoted, Bundesliga club and hopefully get some really good playing time there.
Well, learn how to defend in Germany.
And learn how to defend in Germany, which is what you want to see. I agree with you. I think the center back conversation is almost a more interesting one than the attacking one, because who do Spurs have reliably to play center back right now? They have Christian Romero, obviously their captain, who has an injury history, but we all know is one of the best center backs in the game. They have Mickey van de Ven, who also has quite a lengthy injury history, but is also, I think, one of the best center backs in the game, especially when you factor in his speed. You have Kevin Danso, who I think is a very, very reliable option, and I think the element of his long throws from set pieces, which we saw in the Super Cup, is fun, and it's a little quirky, but it's fun, and I think he's a very solid center back. Outside of those 3 guys, there are a lot of question marks for me. You obviously have Radu Dragusin, who
is working his way back, but not healthy yet.
Is working his way back, and it's going to be a little while. We did get an update from Thomas Frank this week that he's going to start training soon, but it's still going to be a few months, we think. There is also the new signing, Kota Takai, who's been dealing with the plantar fasciitis for a while.
Which I can tell you is some bullshit. Fuck that.
And I can also tell you that when you're talking about a reliable center back, I mean, that's a 20-year-old who's coming over to play from Japan, who's been injured. I can't rely on that in any sort of way. You've got Ben Davis. We all know what Ben Davis is at this point, and that's not something I want to rely on. And then the other option for me would be Archie Gray, but that's because he kind of plays everywhere and can. But also, from what we've seen so far under Thomas Frank, Archie Gray's been playing a lot more in the number 6 role, which is, I think, where people really want to see him play.
Well, I mean, that's where his career will ultimately head for him, yeah.
So when it comes to center backs, I counted 3 there that I can reasonably rely on, and 2 of those 3 have lengthy injury histories. So,
so
don't we need another center back?
We 100% need another center back. Couple of things. One, if you remember a few years ago under Conte, Ben Davies turned into prime Maldini when you played him on the left side of a back three. And so worst come to worst, if we have a center back go down, Thomas Frank has already proven that he can play in a back three. And if it's, our most vulnerable side is obviously the left side. So, worst come to worst, we can slot Cootie in the middle, Danzo on the right, and, Ben Davies on the left. And, you're not going to lose too much there. Obviously, Cootie's going to have to do the tracking back, or Danzo's going to have to. It's not going to be Ben Davies, but
but the other problem you lose about being forced into playing a back three is you lose an attacking player.
You do, but again, if you're running, and it's horses for courses, and Thomas Frank knows way more about this, as we've seen, than I do. But if you're able to play a back three, it's because you're going to be relying on creative width. So I mean, if the opportunity presents itself, cool. If not, it certainly does make it challenging. In Kanji, right? We were Hinakape or whatever, the kid who signed for that scummy lot down the road for a fucking ridiculous amount of money. Now I understand why we didn't get him. It was the ideal, right? Left-sided, can play the left side of a three, can play the left side of a two, can play left back, right? That's what we were looking for. Apparently that's what they were looking for too. I don't fucking know, whatever they paid him. There's not really that left in this window, I don't think. So like the Nkanji from City for 15. Tell you what, if you give me Savinho, I'll give you 20 for Nkanji, and we keep it moving. No, and honestly, and I said this in the chat, and as somebody who works in a space that requires you to sell things to other people, you keep the conversation going. Momentum is key to closing any deal. And so anything that I can do, if you're grumpy about my price, I'm going to do what Chris Voss calls pivoting to non-monetary terms. And I'm going to have a conversation with you about anything other than the thing that I want. And so in this instance, we talked about Nathan Ake, which would be incredible, but he plays too much for City. I don't think they want to let him go. And I don't know that he wants to go to Spurs. And then, they settled on having a conversation around Kanji, which I think would be great for us on a short-term deal. Guy's 30, right? 31 maybe. And, he's was highly touted for the efforts that he's done for his national team, and has had a pretty solid career to this point in the game. As far as rotational depth at center back, we could do a lot worse than that guy for 15 to 20 million.
It'll be interesting to see over the next few days what Spurs are able to do to close out the window. Of course, the other big thing is they need to get more players out the door. One of those being Ibasuma, who is yet to see the pitch under Thomas Frank. Of course, there was the suspension, there was the injury. There are rumors about him going to Turkey to join Galatasaray. We will see if that comes to fruition. I mentioned earlier Brian Heel, Manor Solomon. There are names out there that need to get out the door. It'll just be interesting to see if they can actually pull that off and get some of those names out the door over the next few days. The window closes on Monday, I believe it is. Monday or Tuesday? I think it's Monday. Monday's the first, right? Monday. So we'll see. Our next pod, the window will be closed. So we'll talk about what got done and what didn't when we next convene. I do want to
just real quick before we move off of that,
Mm-hmm.
just for those playing at home again. Not counting all of them. I'm just counting. If you told me at the beginning of this window that we got Mohamed Kudus, João Palhinha, and Xavi Simons, I'd be fucking stoked. So keep it moving.
Well, and you have to also include Matisse Tell, Kevin Danso.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying, if you told me at the beginning of the window, I got those three players.
I know what you're saying. But people are going to say, well, that's all we signed. But no, it's not all we signed. There are even more players that we've signed in this window. There is more that has been invested in this window. People, I think, are being a little bit unrealistic with what Spurs have done already and can still do.
Well, leading up to Xavi, I think it's because we still hadn't had the 10. We needed a 10 before Madison went down.
We did. And that makes the conversation about another attacking player so much more prominent, because we do need another one. But time is
And that's
dwindling,
why I
and
was
we'll see.
suggesting having a guy come in that can do the same thing, kind of that Javi's doing, in the sense that like he can rotate 7 to 10. Anyway, you get it.
Exactly. I did mention the men's side of the game is going into the international break. I wanted to shout out Jed Spence, a first ever senior call up to the England national team. Just a really, really cool story. I mean, I feel like we talk about Jed Spence every other week and just how cool his story is and what a baller that dude is. The fact that today in this match against Bournemouth, when a fullback sub was made, it was Pedro Porro coming off for Destiny Udogie and Spence just moving from the left side to the right side, because you're not taking him off the pitch right now. He's playing that damn well. So he will go up to England. Also, Richarlison is back in the Brazil side. Really cool story there. I had a question for you, Todd. I know you normally present us with questions, but do you know how many players for Spurs are going away on international duty during this international break? How many first team men's players for Spurs are gone? Because I went through the entire squad and saw and wanted to check on who's actually going away on international duty on break for, and many of these games are World Cup qualifiers at this point for the World Cup next season.
I'm going to guess and say 9.
It is 14. There are 14 players going away on duty, and that does not include the likes of Archie Gray, who I believe is going with the U21s for England. Yeah,
Will Lancashire too, by the way.
Lancashire is as well. You've got Javi and Mickey with the Netherlands, Danso with Austria, Paulinho with Portugal, Romero with Argentina, Bergvall with Sweden, Davis and Brennan with Wales, Kudus with Ghana, Porro with Spain, Sarr with Senegal, and Bentancur with Uruguay. That is 14 players when you include Jed Spence and Richarlison into the mix that are international first-team players right now in this squad. That is a higher number than I expected.
Hotspur Way is going to look like that. Hotspur Way is going to look like that Yves Bissouma picture from the Super Cup.
Well, Thomas Frank did say in his press conference, like, everybody's getting a little bit of time off after this because, you're going to have the window obviously on Monday, but then he's going to take a couple days. Some of the players are going to take a couple days.
How many games have we played in the last 3 weeks?
4.
Yeah.
If you include the Super Cup.
Early in the season, that's a lot.
Yep. Well, you want to talk about games? Hey, buddy, we got a list of them. Let's talk about some cup draws. First of all, let's start with the League Cup. Spurs did draw Doncaster Rovers in the third round of the Carabao Cup. They're going to play that match at home, and that's going to be played the week before or after the Champions League match. I'm trying to remember now. I believe it's going to be the week after. Champions League will come first. It'll be the week of the 22nd. I believe the match will be held on the 24th of September, but they have not confirmed that yet.
Question on that is, does Adolja Ajay get to play? Ajay is on loan at Doncaster Rovers, the kid who scored for us in the academy kid that scored in the Europa League.
You know something? I don't know the answer to that. I don't think he would, but I don't know the answer to that because it's a cup match. I'm not sure.
It's a cup match, so I think I don't know. I thought it's like the
I'll have to look into
has
that.
to give permission. I'm not sure.
I had forgotten that was the club you went to. That's why I was so confused by the question. If you were watching on YouTube, watching my wheels turn there. So Doncaster Rovers, obviously a great round, great draw for Spurs. They're a newly promoted League One side. They won League Two last year, and were promoted to League One. So obviously that's a good draw. You can hopefully get some good rotation for that midweek fixture. Let's talk Champions League because Spurs also got their
does Spurs play in the Champions League?
They do. This season, they are going to, in fact, be in the Champions League. And we do have a list of fixtures for the Champions League, which is so wild. Here are your opponents for the Champions League. The home opponents, of course, Dortmund, PSG, Villarreal, and the home opponents are Dortmund, Slavia Prague, Copenhagen, and Villarreal. The away opponents, PSG, Bodo Glimt, Frankfurt, and Monaco. The first impression of this draw for you, Todd, is what?
Sweet. We got a great draw. And for just looking at the sides that we have to play and trying if you want to put them back up just so we can show the people. If you're trying to advance into league, like in the league, what you're essentially trying to do here is get a certain point total from these. So we were in the top of pot 3, which means we had 2 quote unquote better sides, right? That in pot 1 that we really had to worry about, and then a couple from pot 2. Well, when you're actually looking at what we pulled out of this, save PSG, right? Which we owe them one anyway. That's going to be in Paris. It'll be a great atmosphere, good times. It's what you're looking for. Save PSG. There is nobody on that list that you look at and go, oh shit, right? We love playing Dortmund in the Champions League. We're going for the fifth in a row against those clowns in this competition. Big fan of playing those guys. Villarreal, wait. It's the Juan Foyth derby? Let's go. We get a chance to smack Thomas Partey in the mouth and tell that guy what he is for 90 minutes? Sign me up for that. And then you look at the other ones, buddy, and it's like we already went away to Bodo and smacked them on that plastic pitch when no one said we could. And it was a lot later in the season, so it was cold AF because you're above the Arctic Circle. We already smacked Frankfurt out of the Europa League last year. And they don't have Etake or whatever anymore. So that's totally different. Obviously, you're never going to sleep on Monaco. It's a really quality side. That's a tough away fixture. And then, Copenhagen and Slavia Prague, both of those are at home. You should feel pretty comfortable with your chances. Dude, knockout rounds are a thing for Tottenham Hotspur this year if we can keep people healthy.
You would certainly think so. I think the thing that I like about this draw is what you mentioned. It's a lot of familiar opponents, which is interesting. Like Spurs will get to travel to Bodo, which they just did in their their Europa League run last season. The same with a trip to Frankfurt, which they accomplished that. You mentioned Dortmund. They're very used to playing Dortmund. They obviously just saw PSG in the Super Cup, and they're going to get to play them again. I'm not saying that's going to be a great advantage for Spurs. I mean, PSG or PSG, but you at least have the familiarity in literally in 4 of these 8 opponents. Maybe a little less so for Dortmund with some of these players in the squad now because it's been a few years, but even so, just the mindset of this is according to Opta Analysis, it's the 4th easiest of the draws in terms of
the
strength
easiest,
of opponent. You know what? I can find that for you in a second. I know who had the 3rd easiest, and that was Arsenal.
Yeah, I fucking saw that too.
But even so, it's one of those things that look, you still got to play the games, obviously, and
do they have to go away to Bodo as well?
No, I don't think they're going to Bodo. You're asking me questions here, and I don't have that list pulled up, but
why not?
I just know that we do. And here's the other thing too. When you look at the way the schedule is laid out, that trip to Bodo is at the end of September. In fact, it is 1 month from today, the 30th of September, that we will play at Bodo. That's a good time of year to do that. You're getting the home matches, I think, when you want them. The one really tough stretch, and you and I talked about this a little bit before we hit the record button. There's an international break in November, in the middle of November. Spurs will come back from that international break and play on November 22nd away to Arsenal. They will then play that Wednesday, the 26th, away to PSG in the Champions League. Then they have to return home for Fulham. Then it's a midweek trip to Newcastle. Like that end of November into December is going to be really, really quite brutal because you got that trip away to Newcastle, home against Brentford, another midweek game in the Champions League against Slavia Prague, then a trip to Nottingham Forest, and then a potential League Cup fixture midweek after that. And by then you're practically to the holiday, like you're practically to Christmas, yeah. and we know how busy that
and Christmas is a shit show every single year. Yeah,
it is going to get a little hairy for Spurs in that stretch of games, but this is what they want. This is what they ask for when you play in the Champions League. So,
and this is why you spend $300 million in a window or whatever, right? Like this is why you actually get out there and do the business so that you can have a squad that competes on all 4 fronts. We're gonna be able to rotate some players against your Slavia Pragues and your Copenhagens at home.
Yeah.
We're going to need to be able to rotate some players against your Doncaster Rovers in the League Cup. Right?
The other big part of it though is having to finish away to Frankfurt could be really crucial. Like having to finish the group stage could be a tough one.
And I'm pretty confident in our ability to go away and win at Frankfurt because we did it last year.
Well, we did, of course.
And we did it.
It doesn't mean you just can do it on cue though,
If you remember correctly, like they came to our place and gave it to us, and we escaped that match.
We had to scratch and claw. Yep.
Yeah, and we went away to a very hostile environment there, and they were absolutely up for it. And we smacked them about the head and shoulders. So I'm confident in that. And again, and all of this is caveated with the fact that we have to stay healthy. In the last 2 years, I have such bad PTSD from our health situations. I mean, shit, it even goes back longer than that. I just didn't realize I was in an abusive relationship at that point. But I'm telling you, man, if we have one of those runs where everybody stays healthy, we're going to be very dangerous in all 4 of these comps this year.
I certainly hope so. I do have your answer, by the way, I have your answer. The easiest, basically all of the England teams got fairly easy draws in the Champions League.
So I was looking for it.
Spurs, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Chelsea are all in the top 8 of the 32 teams in terms of easy draws. So, or is it 32 or 36? I think it's 36 teams, isn't it? Whatever it is.
32, but I don't know what it is.
It probably is 32. That would make a lot more sense. But yeah, it's, this is where we are. So Spurs have got to face it, and
who was the easiest?
We'll kind of see how they do. I want to say it was Liverpool, or it might have been either Liverpool or Chelsea. Look, Spurs have been handed an opportunity. Is I think the biggest takeaway from all of this, and hopefully they can take advantage of it, because you're not going to get much easier. You're not going to get to play Frankfurt and Bodo, who you played in the Europa League last year, in the Champions League very often. Once again,
let's have a conversation about that, because we took absolute pelters last year for playing Norwegian farmers, and now here we are, dude. And look who we see. Mm-hmm. Look who we see.
It does. And so it is a little bit of an eyebrow raiser, if you will.
Not an eyebrow raiser for me. It makes that Europa League trophy just a little shinier. That's all.
It's an eyebrow raiser for those who are questioning it. It's like, wait,
yes, indeed.
Hold on a second. That's kind of where we're at. Before we get out of here, my friend, I do want to. I'm going to admit to the listeners something that I'm not embarrassed about, but it's something that I did not think I would find myself doing. I watched a preseason football match this week, and that was Spurs women's victory over Arsenal last week, because we recorded our podcast while that game was being played. It was not aired live. It was put up on Spurs Play as a replay after. And your boy had some time this week, so he did want to sit down with it. And after finding out that Spurs put up 4 against Arsenal's women's squad, I wanted to see how that happened exactly. It happened basically through Bethany England bagging a brace, including a penalty, and then Matilda Vinberg got a late goal, and then Suminen scored another free kick goal that went right through the keeper's hands, which was really interesting. But this was a really interesting and kind of fun match, even though it was only a friendly. I joked with you before we started recording that it felt a little bit like a cup match, because it was so up and down the pitch and high scoring, but it was also just a friendly. A good run out for Spurs women. Obviously, it doesn't mean much because it's just a friendly, but a 4-3 victory last weekend over Arsenal. I think the biggest story, though,
stand out to you?
I would say no, to be perfectly honest. I think the system stood out in that it did look positive. It did not look like, early in the match, I think Arsenal certainly got the better of it. Spurs had to claw their way back a couple of times after falling down, but no one overly stood out as much as the whole thing just looked a little bit more cohesive, which is, I think, what we've been asking for under the new manager, Martin Ho. Like, how is this team going to play, and what are they going to look like? They still have not really made any kind of impact in the transfer window, which is an important thing to note. They've made the one signing and not much else. And there was an outgoing this week as well. Hayley Rasso has moved on after 1 year at the club.
That's surprising after a year, no?
It is and it isn't. She came in and she had a really, really good debut in a 4-0 win over, I believe it was Leicester, last season, and kind of never kicked on from there. She made 16 appearances for the club over her one season. She goes to Eintracht Frankfurt in a deal. So I'm kind of just wondering, what's next. The one thing I did want to mention from the Arsenal match, for those who didn't see, Kit Graham made her return from ACL surgery. It was her first minutes since that. So it was really, really good to see her back on the pitch. Spurs really need that attacking punch from her and from other players as well.
No doubt. When does the window close for the women?
So the window closes this Thursday. It's only a few days after the men's window closes. It does close up before the season officially starts. So Spurs women will play one more preseason friendly, and that is against the league WSL League 2 opposition Southampton. That's on Sunday. Again, we're recording this on Saturday, so that match has not been played yet. And then they open the season next Sunday against West Ham at home. So you'll have preseason match, window closes later in the week, and then the season starts on the women's side next weekend. So it's here, and I would urge folks to go over to the Spurs Women blog. There's a good piece over there about some potential targets as the window draws to a close. But honestly, we just haven't heard much in that realm from Spurs Women. So I'm hoping that they can get another signing or two across the line and show us something. But it was a cool result to see them go out and beat Arsenal, even though it was only a friendly last week. So I can't promise that I'm going to watch the Southampton friendly tomorrow. We'll see what what life brings, but it's just one of those things that the season is here now, and it's time to start really digging in and paying attention to what this club's going to be able to do under Martin Ho. Hopefully, it's an improvement on what we saw last year.
Indeed. Well, before we get out of here, Andrew, I got one final question for you.
Good. I'm excited for this.
Well, no. If you could only sign on the men's side one more player this window, who would you sign?
It would be a center back. I don't have a name for you, but I want another center back through the door, because that is the position, like I mentioned earlier, that I am most concerned about in terms of depth right now.
I see.
And look, you mentioned it earlier. What's the biggest indicator of the future? It's what we've seen in the past. We've seen center back injuries in the past, and I know that the style of play is different than it was under Ange Postecoglou, so maybe some of those injuries can be mitigated, but you just never know with these grown athletes when their bodies are going to betray them, and that's tough. As I always say, the best ability is availability, and from what we've seen in the defensive line over the last few years, that has been a struggle for Spurs. So I want more coverage there, and not in the form of a player that just came over from Japan and has been dealing with an injury himself, and not in the form of a guy who's coming back from an ACL, and not in the form of a guy who's on the wrong side of 30 and might even be sold in the next few days. Like, we just don't fully know that yet. So I want a little bit more coverage there. I obviously would want more. I would want to be greedy, but if I had one thing to go do, I would go get another pretty decent defender for depth. That's where I would be.
I appreciate your pragmatism so much. We are the exact opposite people.
I know, you're like, give me Savinho, baby. I want Savinho. You just want Savinho, and that's all. I know, I get it.
It's the best.
I don't blame you either. That's going to do it for this episode of the Tottenham Depot. Be sure to check out our episodes on our YouTube page at youtube.com/Tottenham Depot. You can also leave us a rating and review on your podcast app of choice to help spread the word about the show. You can follow us on all the socials as well at Tottenham Depot. You can follow Todd at TC_Show. You can follow me at Astedka. We will talk to you all next week at some point. This has been the Tottenham Depot podcast. As always, come on, you Spurs.